Okay, participants. You want to set the phone up?
Yep.
Hello, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Our Wi-Fi was down, but it just came up just now, just in time. And we noticed the date for the Zoom was 2 days ago. So I guess we all missed it. No, that was a mistake. I hope people are not confused and people can show. Oh, a lot of people here. Very good. Got two fabulous projects for you today. Can you get that thing to shut up? I couldn't get it off. I couldn't get the volume. Even at lowest volume, it's still making noise. I've got the iPhone. You can see, as usual, Jose's masked face in the middle of it right now. Okay, we got 18 participants. That'd be 16 if you subtract the iPhone and me. Everybody raise your hand if you got your shot already. Oh, how exciting. Woo, a year on. I got mine yesterday. It still feels like somebody socked me in the arm, but that's okay. You can handle a little pain.
So there's no audio on this one.
All right, that's great. Okay, and a few more coming in here. Now Jose's gone. I could take my mask off. All right, we got two projects today, both related to geology. Very exciting. It's not that easy to make geology projects in a little bag full of science. Usually you need more stuff, but Jose would not take no for an answer, and he made it happen. So we got one is a fossil, a real fossil. This is a real 50 million year old fossil. Can you see this? And the kids will be able to expose it and dig around it and observe it. We got these fossils right out of the ground from Wyoming, and Jose brought them back 2 years ago in a big wagon, and we still got a whole bunch of them. So we decided to do it. So that's one project. And the other project is a fake fossil. You make your own fossil out of clay and a little piece of plastic and plaster. So it's a fake fossil, but it's made in exactly the same way. Exactly. I mean, it's the same principle as a real fossil is formed on the ground out in nature, and have been being formed for the last 500 million years. So that's pretty cool as well. And you can make at least 2 up to 3 of these fake fossils out of the kit that you have. All right, the fake fossil one where you make your own, that is has got a video, and we'll send you the link to that. I think Jose actually sent out the link, and that was the standard video where it's got the how-to at the beginning, and then the concepts, a few of the concepts in a bilingual explanation at the end. The other one is not on a video. You don't have a video. So you have to pay attention as I explain here. And then as usual, we'll put the recording of this up when we're done, so you can go back and review if you want to get these concepts. But before we begin, I want to ask for a little feedback. That's the biggest problem for us doing these kits, little bags full of science. It's great. We're coming up to 60,000 bags full of science that we've passed out to the South County kids. And the feedback we get is so little, we really don't know what people are doing or thinking or learning from them. So if you don't mind, I would like to get from each school just a minute or two feedback on how your little bags full of science have been working for you over the last couple of months. Could be in terms of logistics and how you roll it out and present it to the kids, or in terms of how the kids enjoy it or what you think they learn or something like that. So yeah, maybe you could start with our closest school, Oak Avenue. Is somebody here who could speak to the way these have been working at Oak?
Hey, good afternoon, Kurt. So for Oak, what I've the past ones, some of them are a little bit difficult for our little ones. But for the best part, they're pretty good for the upper grades.
Uh-huh. So the little ones have trouble just carrying it out, understanding what to do.
It's more like we see little pieces that they might lose or they might poke themselves with and stuff like that.
Uh-huh. Okay, and the older kids, do they you got?
Oh yeah, they love it. No, they love it.
You're able to see them actually successfully completing the project.
Yes.
And able to talk about it. And,
yes.
All right.
Yeah, they even show it to me. They'll show it to us like probably the next week. They're just playing with it and goofing around and stuff like that. So they love all that stuff.
Great. Okay. How about ASA? Someone here can talk about experience at ASA? I saw Veronica just a minute ago. We'll come back to ASA. How about MCA?
Well, for us and at Mary Chapa, the only ones that got a chance to try out the science workshop projects were the 3rd and 4th graders. They kind of struggled a bit on the recent one with the balloon. They were having a little bit of hard time with that one, but they were enjoying it. They were just struggling a bit. But with the others, we haven't had a chance yet, and the little ones already lost the projects. So I have to give them more of the earlier projects because they lost it.
Oh.
Or they had their siblings get into it. But the ones that did try the projects out, they did enjoy it, but they were just a little frustrated in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And do you have them do it as they're in the Zoom with you?
Yeah, we have the video playing. We'll play the video for a bit. Oh, we have the written instructions and the video. So we tell them to take out everything out of the bag, make sure they have everything. Then we'll play a part of the video, and they'll follow along. If they need to rewind it, we'll explain it, and we do both things at the same time.
Okay. So you're sharing your screen with them, or you're telling them? Okay.
Yeah, we play the video for them, and they just follow along with the video, and as we're speaking and explaining it to them as they're watching your video.
Okay. All right. Now, I don't know how agile your kids are with the with the technology, but if you leave them with the link, they can go back and watch it again or watch the parts they didn't get, and they're learning how to get information themselves as well as the science. So that's an option. Okay, how about at Cesar Chavez?
At Caesar, we've been really encouraging our kids to come and get them. So we've been doing a lot of distribution with them. And we're going to have our upcoming week of science. And I would say with Caesar is when we first started in the beginning, the kids really struggled with the video and stuff. But the kids have really come around and they're learning that you guys have your own web page, and these little instruction things I think are going to make a world of difference, which is really awesome because before there wasn't that clarity, and this makes it even easy. You don't need to even pull up the web page. So I think there's been a lot of growth with you guys and then with the kids as well, as far as the enjoyment. And then of course they see me engaging in it. So I really think that that really helps with the kids because they see us as activity leaders, you know, really doing it by leading by an example. And I'd say it's going great, and we really appreciate this because it really gives us a lot of fun things to do.
Okay, great. And what levels are you passing them out to?
We've been doing for the, I believe the one with the buggy we didn't give to the kinder and first because it was going to be really, really hard. But other than that, all grades have been doing them.
Okay.
And with the buggy, we might set them up before we distribute them because it's really kind of advanced for them.
Yeah, that one's a bit tricky. It's a pretty good time once it gets going, though. Okay, thank you very much, Rachel, leading by example, as always. And I see Veronica is back. Veronica, do you have somebody who can speak to how this has been going at ASA or yourself?
Hello. So we started some of them, I think last year when we had some of our students here with our childcare. So we did some of them. The most recent ones we haven't done right now. We're in transition because we have two new employees with us. So they're learning everything as we've been coming on. And that's Rebecca. Rebecca, you want to wave to everybody? And Jaime, who's hiding. Jaime Cruz. So there are new staff members. So they're learning everything. For them, it's the first time. But we will begin implementing this. We're just having that conversation with Rebecca, with our re-engagement students also. We're going to have our students that are on site right now. We're going to try to do this with them as well because they're part of ASES now. So, and our child care also here hands-on, not just through Zoom. So we might do some through Zoom, but we really want to see how the students respond, the ones that are here on site.
Great. Yeah, we've always said our kits are fine for distance learning, but they're even better in person. So if you've got kids in front of you, boy, now's the time you can really do good stuff. Okay, well, thank you very much for that feedback. And let me just get right into the project. The whole concept is the point of a fossil. Fossils are extremely important for understanding the history of the world. Basically, everything we know about life before there were written records comes from fossils. Fossils are the remains of something that was alive that got stuck. Basically, almost all of them got stuck in the mud and then covered up and then compressed and solidified and then preserved for millions of years. And so now we get all the information by digging these things up and analyzing what we see. And so this one that you'll get, this real fossil, you can check it out. And for example, you can try to work out how you would find the age of this fish. They're fish, these real ones, they're fish fossils. And you could look at them, and you often read books about fossils, and it says, well, this fish was 7 years old and it was a male, and it died of oxygen, a lack of oxygen. Well, you might think about how you learned that from looking at this thing that's stuck in this rock right here. And it's possible. They really do know how to do that. So that's this idea we want to get through to the kids, is that we don't have much information at all about prehistory, natural history, pre people writing it down. But what we do have is all from these fossils. And so we can see how they were formed, and we can try to think about what are the different ways to get information about these things. So I want to start with the one that does have a video, and basically it's got the piece of, can you see the iPhone? I'll put it a little bit lower. Okay. Yeah, you can watch me or you can watch Rachel. You've got a little cup, and that represents the riverbed, basically. And then you got the mud, and the mud represents mud. So something happened in the mud. Either something died and fell in the mud, or something got stuck in the mud, or got washed into the mud, or sometimes things just walked through the mud, or sometimes they pooped in the mud, and then it sits there, and then more mud comes. It's like sediment. So you've got the mud. This is the riverbed, and then you've got something, whatever it is. In this case, it was this poor crab. This poor little red crab was walking by, died and fell over, and then got stuck there. Just maybe stayed there for a few months, and nothing ate it, nothing disturbed it. You can see the reason that there's not more fossils is really clear. Usually when something dies, something else comes and eats it. Something else moves it away, or the stream floods and everything's washed away, and we lose almost all the information. But in certain special occasions, it dies and then it stays there. And then this other sediment comes in and covers it up. So here's a key point. Don't leave your little crab in there. If you do that, then when you put the plaster in there, then the actual crab will be inside there. And there are some fossils like that, but they're very young. When you find a fossil that's actually got the animal still sitting inside there, that's a very young fossil, maybe not even 1,000 years old. And most of the fossils that we get information from are many thousands, millions of years old. And so the actual animal is gone, but the shape and the structure of the creature is still there. So that's what we're doing. We're putting you put the crab in.
Kurt, I think you froze.
Am I back? Can you hear me? Am I back? Can you hear me?
Yes, yay.
I didn't freeze. You all froze. No, just kidding. We're still obviously having our Wi-Fi issues here. So where was I? The crab goes in there, but then over the thousands of years, it turns to stone. It quite literally turns to stone. The molecules and cells that make up the crab are changed chemically to become part of the rock. But the entire structure is still there. So you can learn all this stuff about it, even though it's just like a figure of what it used to be. So you take the little red crab out, and then you mix up your plaster. And you don't mix up all of the plaster. What you do is you put a little bit into the cup, and then you pour a little bit of water. It tells the directions on the, it tells how much on the write-up, and then you stir it up. And then you've got about 5 minutes. I mean, you don't need 5 minutes. You can dump it right in there. But if you wait more than 5 minutes, it's already starting to set up. So then you dump it into the little impression that the crab made, and just kind of seat it down, beat on it, and make it sit. And then you wait. And then you wait at least 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And then when it'll get a little bit warm, the plaster is reacting with the water. It's actual chemical reaction. So it's different from just mud or like sand. When sand or mud gets wet, well, then it changes its form. But then when it dries, it's the same thing, but it dried out. But here, the plaster is not just drying. It was actual chemical reaction. And so the plaster, after it dries, is a different chemical composition. And if you put water on it again, it's not going to dissolve. It won't go back to the way it used to be. And so in that sense, it's quite like the real ones, real fossils. Instead of plaster, it's just more sediment coming down the river. And it sits in the little impression, and then it hardens, and more stuff packs up on top of it. And it just all hardens down there. And then you might think, well, okay, but now it's under the ground. How would we ever find it? Do they go and actually dig holes to find this stuff? And sometimes they dig for fossils if they know where the fossil might be. But a lot of fossils they find are right on the surface. It's a lot easier to find stuff on the surface than to dig a hole. And it it came to the surface because of the motion of the plates, the tectonic plates of the Earth. The sediment built up because it was washed down the river. And then it stayed underground for a while, but then a lot of times the ground where all this resides is uplifted. It's pushed up in the process of the geological movements of the area. So what was underground gets pushed up. And actually, we can find stuff on the ground that has evidence of being miles and miles underneath the ground. But then through all these motions, it's pushed back up, and then it comes to the surface. And that's how we learn about it. So if you go down to Arroyo Seco, you can find little fossils like this. They're not quite as old, but there's fossils of crabs and clams, and these little round things called ammonites that look like snails, enormous snails. And those things are stuck in the rocks there, and they also formed on the surface, and they got covered up and pushed down, and then moved back up. So there's another reason. There's a dozen reasons why we find so few fossils, but there's one, is that anything we find on the surface, it had to make that trip down and then back up so that we find it. All right, so you can do this, and then when you're done, you take out the plaster piece, and then you can do it again. You can do it about 3 times with this amount of plaster that you've got, and you can use the 2 little figures in your bag, or you can use other stuff. You could try to do it with a quarter. You could try to do it with a piece of jewelry. You know, get your mom's diamond and gold ring and stick it in the mud. And well, no, actually, probably not a good idea. But anything that's small and has a little bit of a interesting shape, you could try to jam it in the mud, take it out again, and make a fossil out of it. All right. Does that make sense? that should be pretty straightforward. I hope oh, look at that. Rachel's got a little starfish fossil. That's a really nice one. You can paint them when you're done too. That's a great idea. We're not providing the paint, but if any kind of marker or paint, you can make it beautiful when you're done. And by the way, when all the plaster is gone, this stuff is pretty cheap. You can get this for like $5 at True Value. You can get more plaster and do it again. Or you can just start playing with the clay. This is real clay. And if you make something nice out of it and then put it out in the sun, it'll harden. And if you cook it in the oven, it's not quite as good as firing it in a real kiln. But if you cook it for half an hour at 400 degrees or something, it'll harden pretty solid. It'll start an actual chemical reaction. And then you'll have a little figure of whatever you made. All right. Are there any questions about the make your own fossil activity?
No.
Okay. Now, Jose said to be sure and remind you that we're open 3 days a week. And right after spring break, we're planning to open 5 days a week. We're going to discontinue our weekly bags full of science, and we're going to go back to normal open hours. We'll all be vaccinated. So if kids are into this or any of these projects, if kids are really into it, tell them they can come here and do more of the same. And they can elaborate and any ideas they have about how to do it better or different, they can come here and actually do it. Of course, it's always free and we'll help them with any ideas they have. The science workshop, you can pursue the projects of your own imagination. So you could come and do bigger fossils of different things, and you can dig for other fossils. If they're really into digging for their fish fossil, they could come here, and we've got heaps of these things. They can dig up as many fossils as they want. And then we've got ones from Arroyo Seco too. Arroyo Seco ones are a lot harder. You need a real hammer and a real chisel, and you can chip out these little clam shells, and it's pretty cool from thousands of years ago, millions of years ago. Okay, so let's try this one. This one, can you see, where's my little camera here? I can't even see my camera. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, there it is. So you got this rock, and this rock came from Wyoming, and it was the bottom of a lake bed. So really this starts with a story. The story is 50,000 years ago, there was a lake in Wyoming, and it was full of fish, and the fish were swimming around, and life was beautiful, except that there was a volcano next door, and the volcano erupted. Enormous eruption, and it let a lot of the soot and the ash come down right on top of the lake. And when that happened, it cut off the oxygen supply to everything living in the lake. So over the next few days and weeks, everything in the lake died. It died and it fell to the bottom of the lake. So now there's thousands of fish and a few other things laying dead at the bottom of the lake. And so then the years passed, and the top of the ash and stuff sinks to the bottom also. So now the stuff at the bottom of the lake is covered with ash. And then over the years, more sediment comes in the lake and drops more and more and packs it down. And so now there's a layer at the bottom of the lake that's squeezing basically all of these dead fish. Okay, and then through the forces of the movement of the geological plates, that lake dried up, and slowly that layer got pushed to the surface of the ground. And now when you go there, it's called Fossil Lake. You can find information on the little sheet in your book. You go there and you just walk along the ground and you see all these things laying around, all these 50 million year old fossils. And the founder of the community science workshops from San Francisco, he went to see this a few years ago and he was so blown away. And he asked the people who were working there, can we get some of these? And they said, sure. And so he picked up some. And then we've been being supplied by that little by little over the years. And like I said, Jose actually drove there a couple of years ago with a couple of our staff, and they loaded up a whole wagon full of these things and brought them back here. So the kids of Greenfield can dig them up. The story is critical to know that this happened 50 million years ago. This is not something that died, last summer. 50 million years, and it's really hard to understand 50 million years. 50 million years has 10 zeros, right? It's a 5 and 10 zeros. So we could do some math here. 1,000 has 3 zeros. Sorry, that was wrong. That was a billion. 1,000 has 3 zeros. 1,000,000 has 6 zeros. 50 million has 7 zeros. And each one of those zeros means it's 10 times bigger than the last one. So 50 million is, for example, 50 million is 6 zeros bigger than 50. 6 zeros is 1,000,000. So it's 1,000,000 years more than 50 years. Now, 50 years is like a human experience. If you think of the oldest person you know, maybe you know somebody or heard of somebody or know somebody who knows somebody who's 100. Now, if you make 100, that's 10 out of 10. You're doing great. But that's about it. You never heard of anybody who's 200. Certainly never heard of anybody who's 1,000. So the human experience, what we can hope for, the best we can hope for is about 100 years of experience. And so what does it mean to say something is 50 million years old? I mean, it's far beyond what any person ever has experienced. And so you have to almost kind of have to accept it instead of understanding it. You have to accept it. The earliest humans were, evolving from the pre-human ape-like creatures around 1,000,000 years ago, 1,000,000 years ago. And so this is even 50 times older than that. The dinosaurs died a little bit before this. So at the time of this fish lived, all the dinosaurs had lived and died already. So that's kind of where it sits in the history. Most complex life on Earth started up around 500 million years ago, which is 10 times longer than this. All right, so this is really old. It's really, really old, but it's actually still a small fraction of the whole length of the Earth. So this is already a complex creature. Fish are vertebrates. They have, a spinal cord. They have a bunch of different bones, and they swim around and they breathe with their gills. So they're quite complicated creature. So this is not even like one of the original life forms from 500 million years ago. This is already showing that life was very, very highly evolved. And so that's what you got. And now here, they found all these things in this lake, and you can see that we've got 5 different types of fish here. It's on the sheet that we're going to give you. And there's both a picture of the fish, because some of these fish are still alive. They've continued to evolve and maybe slightly different, but they're still alive, and you can get actual pictures of them. And others of them are extinct, but they drew the pictures of them. So you got pictures of the fossil fish and the real fish of 5 different types. So whenever you find a fish, you could try to work out which one of these types of fish it is that you've got in your rock. And by the way, it's kind of a luck of the draw thing. It could be that in your rock, the rock that you received in your bag, there isn't anything. No, you can't tell. It's all kind of a, you're actually being a real scientist here. You're checking it out to see what you got. Some of them are huge and elaborate and very clear, and others of them are very small, but some of the small ones are the most beautiful ones. But then others, you can slowly chip away your whole rock. You could spend 20 minutes and then you find out that there was nothing in there. So, don't be discouraged. Once again, this is doing real science. And if you want to come look for some more, you can come to the science workshop. So how do you dig out your fossil? First of all, you need to know that the fossil is not going to come out. The fossil is the rock. As I said, it's not something else. It's not like one of these plastic things is sitting in there and you're going to be able to chisel it out. The fossil is the shape of the fish on the rock. So don't tell them to dig out their fossil. The point is to uncover and expose your fossil. So when you're done, it's going to be sitting there in the rock and you're going to be able to see all the parts of it. So if you can only see a tiny little bit of it, then you're going to get your little chisel and your hammer. Use my little hammer. Oh, your hammer you have to make your hammer by putting the little stick into the hole, and you got your little hammer. All right, stick, huh? And then you can chisel on the rock with the hammer, chisel like that. And you might say, oh, this is not very strong, but the rock is really soft. It's a mudstone, it's doing a shale, and it does come out. In fact, you don't even need the hammer. You can just kind of chisel yourself like this, your hand, and you remove the layers very gently. In general, you don't want to make big motions when you're digging for a fossil. You want to be careful you don't mess it up. You can break them really easily. So there's one thing you can do. Then you have the acid solution. This is acid. This is real acid, but we diluted it so much that it's completely safe. You can. I wouldn't have any problem actually putting this in my mouth, right? So I just put my finger on it. Nothing happens at all. It's stronger than vinegar, but not much stronger. And so when you put the acid onto this rock, you get a reaction and it fizzes. It fizzes up with a bunch of bubbles. And you don't want the kids looking at it really carefully with their eyes. But once again, I don't think it's a problem. Even if this stuff does get in your eyes, it's not going to cause any problem. But when it hits the rock, it dissolves the top surface of the rock. And then you take the toothbrush, which you want to keep separate from the one you're using to brush your teeth in the morning. And then you can get off the surface of the rock. So once you find your fossil, you can either pour the stuff on there or you can use a spoon. Get the spoon from your house and you can dip a little bit like that. Just put it right on the fish and it fizzes. We colored it yellow. It was clear when we made it. We diluted it down from the strong stuff, and so we colored it yellow so they're not tempted to drink it. And it has a little picture on it that says "Do not eat." But still, I don't know if I'd give this to the kindergarten first graders. And certainly, whoever you give it to, tell them to be careful around their house. But basically, you want to use that to remove the parts that are covering up the fossil. So you put a little bit on and then you brush it off. You put a little bit more on and brush it off. And that's how the real archaeologists do this, paleontologists, looking for the real fossils. All right. Now, one thing you can do once it's all exposed is you can we've seen kids make little grooves around it. So it kind of highlights it. This soft stone is really easy to work with. You can actually carve it into anything you want. And so they could do that too. If the kid looks on both sides of the rock and they don't see anything, then is the time to start splitting it. Try to look into splitting it open. And they were formed in a layer. Don't forget, it was all formed like this. And so it broke on the difference between a layer, and there were other layers up and down. And so it's also composed of layers. And if you bring it up like this and you whack it with your hammer from the top, often you can break the rock along one of the lines of the layers. And often what you'll find is, you see that? You see that one? It's splitting open almost like a piece of wood. It's splitting open, and once it splits open, that's where you find the fossil. All right, did you see that? So this part came off of that part, and there's no fossil in there. If you look along the edge, sometimes you'll find a fossil sticking out the edge of one of the layers. It's just a little dark band. Well, that's a good place to split it and look for another fossil. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that's all we got for the process that you do it with. I got a plate. Mine's a plastic plate. Of course, you don't want to use a glass plate. You're going to be beating on it. But this kind of keeps all the mess together if you do it on a plate or a tray. Okay, are there any questions about the real fossil? Do you remember how old it is?
50 million years.
50 million years old.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can we use the acid on the previous project? You know
Wow.
how we were fossilizing other things? Can we use the same acid on the previous project?
I never thought of that. Never thought of, hold on, I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna try it right now. Well, I don't have to get it. You could try it. Once you've got the plaster thing, you could dump the acid on and see if it reacts. And I bet it will, because it's a reaction between an acid and a base. So this is the acid and the base. This rock is made of calcium carbonate. And the plaster is also made from a carbonate. So I think it
does.
will react. And I think, does it
Love
fizz?
Yes.
Oh,
a
we just
lot.
got it fizzing. Yeah, so you can use the acid to clean off the other fossil.
Cool.
And you'll see that it will dissolve the fossil just like it dissolves a rock. I mean, the fossil is the rock. So it's a really delicate, it's like an art. I read a story about a guy who was studying whales, and it turns out that one of the most important parts of a whale, or it indicates a lot about the whale and the evolutionary point of the whale, is the bones in the inner ear of the whale. And if you think about finding these things, like if you have a mountain, I mean, think of the mountains at Arroyo Seco, and maybe there's 2 dead whales up there, and you have to go find the bones that are in the inner ear of the whale that died maybe 20 million years ago. It's incredible to think they ever find them, but they do. And when they find them, they're all covered with the silt. It's just like your ear. It's got a little passageway that went in there, and then all of the sediment from the river or the bottom of the ocean where they were went in, packed it full. Well, to get the shape of that inner ear bone, they have to dissolve away the sediment that went in there, but not the rock that came from the bone. And so it's a process that takes weeks just to dissolve that stuff away and then sweep it out with a little brush and dissolve a little bit more and sweep it out with a brush. But when they're done, they take the measurements of it and they get the shape of it, and they know what line of whales that one came from. So it's science, but it's also kind of an art. It's all the same skills that an artisan uses when they're building with clay or sculpting out of stone. Great question. Thanks. Are there any more questions? Okay. Sometimes when we're doing this in the workshop here, the kid gets done and it's such a nice little fossil. They want to make a frame for it. They want to mount this on a little piece of wood and put a frame around it. So if you got some kid with a really spectacular looking fossil, you can tell them to come by and we can make a frame and hang it on their wall. You can have a fossil fish looking at them as they sleep every night. Okay, I've told you every single time. I'll continue to tell you that all of the science concepts are secondary to the general excitement and the thrill of discovery and screwing around with interesting stuff. So as you pass out the projects, it's all about cheerleading and getting them excited about exploring, observing very carefully, and learning from their own observations. That's what scientists do. If they're doing that, then they're being scientists. And there's no better way to learn about science than to be a scientist. Okay, well, we've got all the bags here. I think we're waiting for a few more chisels before we pass them out. But if you're really desperate, if you want to do this next week or something, give Jose an email and we can bring over your bags right now. Otherwise, I think we'll have them all out to you by the middle of next week. And you can start going. Any more information or notices from the principals or the site leaders?
I have a question. If one says both of my people are new, would you be willing to come to do one of the lessons so that they could see you do one of the lessons here at the site?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure, and they could come here. Any one of you could come here. We're open Wednesday and Friday from 2 to 5, and then Saturday 10 to 3.
Okay.
Those are the best times to come, but if you want to come some other time, just talk to Jose or myself, and you can come and we can show you the whole range of possibilities.
Okay, sounds
But
good.
yeah,
Thank you.
I think I could come do a thing with your staff and your kids.
Sounds good. Thank you.
No worries.
It looks very exciting, Kurt.
Great.
It's definitely the type of hands-on learning that I definitely enjoy. And just want to say hi, a big shout out to all of you awesome ASES leaders. I see a lot of familiar faces and it's great to see you all.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get more and more real kids and less viruses as the weeks go by. We got
Thank you for having our fourth graders last week. Mr. Cervantes met some of our students at the site and walked to the science workshop. So if some of our ASES team would like to do that, would that be all right?
Yeah, we offered that to all the fourth grade teachers. I know one is coming from MCA and one is coming from Cesar Chavez. But any other fourth grade teachers who want to do that could do it. And if you want to bring your ACES kids here, that should work as well. And we'll all
Thank
make
you.
a single project, and we'll all be spread out at the workbenches outside. And it's been working pretty well.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And just let us know if you need anything else. And we're not completely out of the woods yet, so stay vigilant, stay masked, and I'll see you in person sometime soon. All right.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bye.